Good afternoon. Today is the 15th of March and it's time for yet another not particularly interesting, very vague and probably quite boring vlog. I'm just on the way to film the monthly sale preview for Barron's Classic Car Auctions near Southampton, but we're not going to be talking about that at all today. In fact, we're going to be talking about something that I don't think we've really discussed much on this channel, and that's whether or not before 2021 was the good old days for buying new and second-hand cars or not. So what do I mean by the good old days? Really, I mean the days when you could just go into a dealership and buy like an ex-demo car or a pre-reg car and get a massive saving off the list price. The days when certain cars lost up to 70% of their value in the first 3 years. Those sort of days. The days where it was common to pick up cars with an MOT for £100 or £200. I think the reason why we had such low car prices in this country for a really, really long time was mainly due to colossal depreciation on certain models. I remember back in 2012 buying a Chevy Cruze from a dealership in Tunbridge Wells. Obviously Chevrolet pulled out of Europe in 2015, apart from obviously the Corvette and the Camaro. I think you can still buy those. Corvette you definitely can. And it was a car that had 5,000 miles on it. It was an ex-demonstrator car. I think it was just under a year old, and the car was maybe £15,000 new. That's an amazing thing in itself. Imagine buying a car of that size, about the same size as a Ford Focus these days, for £15,000 brand new. It wasn't even a base model, so that's another thing entirely. But I think I paid £9,500 for that car. It's just crazy. So that's, you know, just over 10 years ago. Obviously we've had a lot of inflation since then, and that car would be worth considerably more now just for the inflation alone, but not that much more. I remember the next one of those I bought a car with an engine that we cannot discuss on this channel. It's the same basic model of car, a little bit newer, 2014, and it was not even 2 years old. I think the list price of it was 17,000 when it was new, and I paid, I think, 7,800 for it. Now bear in mind the mileage was quite high, about 24,000, which is quite high for a car that was, I think, somewhere around 19 months old. It was something like that. So that's just crazy. Chevrolet, of course, at the time, anything you bought with a Chevy badge on it, I think the same with the Chrysler badge on it, really, to be honest. They both were selling cars in this country at the time. But they'd announced that they were going to completely pull out of Europe, I think, entirely. Obviously, the models from Chrysler were largely just rebadged Lancers anyway, so it wasn't as if we were completely disappearing from all markets. It's just obviously for our market they did, and we didn't really think it was worth selling them. So we're at that stage and we're all part of Fiat and all that kind of stuff, so other Fiat brands were being sold to us. FCA, I should say, it was at the time, now Stellantis. But just mad depreciation on things. I bought in 2017 a 1998 Mazda 626 2-litre GSI for £370 of an MOT. It's not unusual for that type of car. I mean, the car was pretty good. There were a few things to do on it, but you know, that's you know, just examples of cars that I remember. Also in 2017, I picked up my Seat Toledo, the very first car that ever appeared on the channel. I picked it up £12,500. The car had a 39% discount off list price. 39%. Now bear in mind, Toledos weren't generally considered to be the most exciting cars by a lot of the press at the time, but a friend of mine still owns that car. She still got it. I sold it to her in 2020, and it didn't depreciate as much as I thought it would. In fact, we actually kind of, made a little bit of money at the end, because the balloon payment was, actually a lot less than what the car was worth. If I'd actually sold that to a dealer, or even held on to it now, you can't buy one of those now for less than about £8,000 or £9,000. Chevy Cruisers, nobody wants them, so who knows what they're worth, but it's just absolutely mad. It's totally mad. But the thing is, if you were someone like me and you bought your Seat Toledo in 2017, you didn't get that enormous discount. I think it was £8,000 of the price of a new car. Then of course you'd be in a lot of trouble, because you would have just lost a whole load of money. Fortunately, that took the edge off, and that's one of the reasons I bought it. But it wasn't unusual to find massive discounts off cars, and therefore the second-hand prices of cars were really low. I remember a typical example of what one of my clients paid in 2018 for a 2010 Kia Proceed. I think it was 1.4. It wasn't anything particularly exciting, but the chap was looking for his first car, and a 1.4. It came from somewhere in southeast London. The chap had it from new. It needed some servicing. It hadn't had all the services done on it and everything, but it seemed okay. I mean, it's just utterly mad what we used to sort of think was normal, really. And now you go to a dealership. This has happened the other day. My lady wife and I just passed the local Honda dealership. It's called Hendy. It's close to where we live in Eastleigh. And there was a 69 plate Corsa F out there. I think it was a 1.2 base model or an SRI. It was one of the two. And that was up himself £13,000. £13,000 for a Corsa, but it's over 3 years old and not even a particularly high specification model. That car started, I think, from memory, when the Corsa F was launched in 2019 at about £18,000. It's only lost £5,000 in that time. Back in the day, a sort of Corsa like that at 3 years old, and a relatively low spec model, that price would have been well under £10,000, if not less. Just absolutely insane. So a lot of things have sort of changed in that time, but obviously if you were a person buying the car new, you'd be losing tons of money. If you were the person who bought the car second hand and only had it a couple of years, in the case of my black Chevy, I bought the car in 2012 and started in 2015, and I could only get £4,000 for it. I think the moment I bought it, I think it was about something like that, or Toledo, or all of these things. It's that, well, nobody knows what they were, so you're just going to buy that. I'm very pleased to say that for Samuel at Tivoli, we're taking the advice of what most people say: when you buy a car that traditionally has very heavy depreciation, just hold on to it for as long as possible. And at the moment, that's what we're planning to do. No reason for us to sell it. But in some ways, because I know that second-hand car prices will return to normal at some stage. There's been a very, very popular video that I made in November last year about why are second-hand car prices so high, and I think talking about when it might return to normal. And they will eventually, because if you look at the new car sales at the moment, or registrations they call it, the SMMT, the figures are going very close now to what they were before the pandemic. We're talking maybe similar to 2019, early 2020 figures. Obviously after middle of March, you can't really compare the figures, because we were all sort of in a national lockdown. I remember the day it was reported, I was actually doing a job for a client and going around looking at some cars for him, and between me doing a deal on a car for my client and actually the client picking it up was several months, because the car wasn't able to get to them before the lockdown lockdown came in, which is another thing entirely. But initially, the lockdown didn't actually have a negative effect on, you know, the good old days and the prices. That was some really good deals to be had if you could actually get out legally and go and buy a car. I did do an online search for one of my friends because they needed to change the car at the time, and that had to be possible, and there were some deals about. But will we ever return to these days of, you know, colossal depreciation on certain cars, such as, you know, a 3-year-old Chevy Cruze being worth like 30% of its new price, and picking up pretty decent cars with an MOT for under £500 all the time? Are we ever going to return to those days? I don't know. I really, really don't know. At the moment, we're in a situation where the demand for second-hand cars is so high, particularly you know, small automatic ones with petrol engine. So it's very, very hard for me to say. But, you know, what do you think about this? Is this something that really was the good old days, or is it just a phase that we went through and going through a, you know, different phase now? Let me know in the comment section below. So thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more incredibly uninteresting music. Lloyd Young Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below.